Hi and hello watch fans, and welcome to another edition of The Real Time Show with me, your friendly neighbourhood watchmaker Rob Nuds, the friendly neighbourhood jeweller Alon Ben Joseph, and the managing director of Eberhard, Mario Peserico. Welcome to the studio, Mario.
Thank you. Good pleasure, very nice pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you very much.
Now, I believe Alon has some fireworks that he's been lighting or in the process of lighting while we're off air. Alon, why don't you fire this rocket?
I am super excited to do this recording because I always love to record for the Real Time Show, but I'm especially very happy that Mario took the time to sit down with us because Eberhard is a legendary brand, but doesn't get enough attention in my humble opinion, because I dare to make a bold statement. One of the most amazing modern chronographs ever was the Chrono 4 by Eberhard. For our dear listeners that don't know Eberhard, they are the kings of Italy. And one of the questions we're going to ask Mario, why aren't you guys the kings of the world? Welcome, Mario.
Thank you, Alon. No, difficult to be the king of the world when you have such big competitors, such big brands, such big groups, financial groups with such power. We are, you use the term humble, and we are a humble brand driven by a family for the last 55 years. We have had historically Italy as the main market because the Eberhard family already between the two wars and after World War II already was establishing the Italian market as the most promising for what we heard from the past. And in fact, I can say that Italy has remained the most important European market until almost 2007 and 2008 in terms of turnover of a Swiss export. For us, it still is the main market. For us, it means 35% of our turnover. And for sure, in the past, not up to me to say if it is still the same, but in the past, it was the market that was setting a bit the trends. And it was very common to hear that what was nice in Italy was nice everywhere. So we are originally Italians because the family is originally Italian. I am Italian. The company is 100% Swiss, but our Italian soul and Italian sense of aesthetic, I think, is still alive. And for sure, Italy remains our most important market. But obviously, we know that the markets are different, that the globalization is something else, that we need to be present more widely in different markets. And this is what is happening. If I can continue, I don't know if you want to interrupt me, please do it. This is what is happening in the sense that with the end of the supply from ETA, and this happened in 2018, 2019, we stopped purchasing from ETA brand, and we started buying with no more limitations as it was before. You perfectly know the rules that the anti-competition commission decided with ETA many years ago now, and we were able to, with the new suppliers we have now, discuss different quantities, discuss a growth, discuss the possibility to work on projects that before was impossible. I'm not criticizing ETA. I'm simply describing what was the situation with ETA decreasing the quantities for everybody, for all the brands in the watch business. And when at the end we finished purchasing from them, we were then able to obviously purchase from others. And this in particular means that we now purchase from Sellita, that in terms of quality has absolutely the same quality price ratio, quality price than ETA, if not more, because today Sellita challenges itself every day with the third brands. And I think this doesn't happen anymore with ETA, that is almost delivering only to the brands belonging to such group. So with Sellita now we can plan the future. We can work on specific projects. It is the case of the new chronograph that we presented in Geneva Watches and Wonders. And we can work on exclusivity projects as this is, with numbers reasonable, with the quality very high, and with the deliveries that are absolutely very reasonable. So now I don't want to say and don't want to mean that this means that we will be the king of the world, not for sure. The competitors remain, as I said, huge, strong, and very good brands. But for sure, our projects go further. And we had the first presence in Watches and Wonders this year, and we already see the results of this, the results of the positioning of a brand a bit higher, step by step, and not forgetting who we are. So we already see the results of this.
So I want to go back to the very beginning of Eberhard in a moment. The company was founded in 1887 and talk about its origins. But right now, let's just focus on this ETA situation, because while it's well known to us in the industry, and especially you've lived it, you've been through the transition of the supply chain and working with new partners like Sellita. But for our listeners that may not be so familiar with what the Competition Commission was actually discussing for many years and what happened, could you give us a brief rundown, just in very basic language, about what was happening and why it was so significant for a brand like yours that's worked with suppliers for most of its existence?
It has been a very long process. It lasted, I don't know, I lost the count, more than 10 years, I think. At the end, the Commission decided that ETA had the monopoly and had to decrease the quantities they were delivering to brands. This is what they signed together with ETA. So ETA, step by step, year after year, from 2000 and I forget, 13 or 14 or before, but until 2019, had to decrease the quantities for each brand up to zero. And this is what happened. At the end of this process, I think that we see now that the result is that Sellita now is more or less the monopolist. And in my opinion, it's strange that the Commission decided to not to allow one company to be monopolist. It is correct not to be monopolist. Don't take me wrong. But with the result to make another company monopolist. So this is what a bit of a paradox. Obviously, and I must say this very easily, very openly, ETA is a brand belonging to a big group, while Sellita is a brand belonging to a single person. So it's much easier, obviously, to work today with Sellita, where there is one person that commits itself to the promises and to the projects that we sign together. So this is more or less the big picture of what happened.
It's very interesting to hear this from the horse's mouth, from somebody that's actually lived it, because I think a lot of people are under the impression that the Swatch Group was the motivating force in this reduction of supply, that they wanted to remove their movements from their competitors, which ultimately allowed for the rise of Sellita. But the actual process was that the competition committee wanted to create a fairer playing field, right? And now we've ended up in the situation, maybe Sellita is not a monopoly, but it's certainly getting towards that point. It's certainly the go-to supplier. It's certainly the brand off everybody's lips first. I mean, have you looked at other suppliers like, let's say, STP, for example, or even further afield?
Yeah, we've been looking at, and we work with La Joux-Perret, we've been looking with Concepto, so we work with other players of the market. No, I agree with you, Rob. At the beginning, ETA didn't want to have such a competition with a company that was Sellita, that in their opinion was copying their movements. You cannot shun anyway to have competition on the market. So besides Sellita, everybody else could have developed movements and take in 20 years part of the market. So I think that position was more, linked to a competition against Sellita. The result today is that Sellita is monopolist. I have nothing to regret. I love very much Sellita. I love very much his owner. They work very professionally, and it's the best. It's the best business partner that we could imagine. What I don't think is the position of the Commission that went from a monopolist position to another monopolist position somehow, and this, in my opinion, it's a paradox. So for us, at the end, results were that we were a bit frozen for some years, where we had to, also because we have a couple of movements, a couple of watches where ETA movements are very important, like the 8 days of the Chrono 4. But now we found our horizon, we found our future in this way. So I think for us it was absolutely positive. Difficult for some years, but very positive at the end.
I want to quickly ask you to give an elevator pitch about who Eberhard is today, and afterwards I want to go back, as Rob said, to the start of 1887. So if you meet somebody new that's not that familiar with Eberhard, how would you present Eberhard? What's the brand? What's the DNA? What price points?
I would say that Eberhard is a brand that has been trying to keep its original DNA as much as possible. So we started beginning of 20th century, a bit before, but let's say with chronographs and obviously mail watches, because that was the market at that time, just during the First World War, and we have been trying to stick to this DNA by continuing to propose and to produce watches for mails, mainly chronographs, with this complication in particular. Obviously, the market was much smaller than it is today. The trends were set by one brand, were followed by the others. So often we see that some watches are the same from us, from Rolex, from Omega, from other brands, because those were the existing brands at that time. So there were chronographs in the 30s, and more or less the brand existing at that time were producing chronographs with the same functions. There were diving watches at the end of the 50s. There were anti-magnetic watches at the end of the 50s, beginning of the 60s, and so on. So at the end, when we see some watches belonging to the past, but often reproposed in the modernized versions from us or from other brands, this goes back to the origin of this product, to the decades of the last century when these watches were produced. I remember a postcard of the Swiss Federation in 1947, and there were 7 brands associated to the Swiss Federation. So today, I think there are, and we were among them. Today I don't know if 400 or 500. So the richness of our brand, we believe, at least is what we think, and we might be wrong, but it's what we on what we base our philosophy, our strategies, our DNA, is to have a past that is rich. We don't want to lose it, to waste it. We want to keep it as an important heritage, as important roots. We also obviously need to have a present and a future, but somehow combining these different moments. So having a past makes a brand rich. We somehow decline in modernized version what we made in the past, but we also innovate in technology and in aesthetic on other aspects. So our collections are a mix of past and present, of classical and more modern, more sporty, and this is a bit what we try to do, keeping a price ratio very correct. And it is important for us to work with Sellita because, and that's the reason why I mentioned this collaboration and underline this collaboration, because Sellita today is a movement company that allows brands in our segment, so let's say from 2,000 to 6,000 Swiss francs, to keep this price position that otherwise would be impossible. We saw in the last years how much it changed, how much brands below this 1,000, 1,500 Swiss francs are suffering, because it's more and more difficult to produce with the criteria of Swissness, and how much the market is going toward the high end. And that is the reason why we are trying to widen our position in keeping the starting 2,000, but opening step by step a bit up to the 7,000, the 8,000, not to think that we can present the tourbillon tomorrow morning, but thinking that we have to grow with our heritage, with our past, we have to grow step by step.
And what capabilities do you have in-house? What do you guys do from design to supply? So everything in the middle.
We design totally in-house. We follow the production. So the production is not left to somebody else who makes it for us or makes proposal. So the supplier makes exactly what we ask. But obviously, we don't produce in-house. We don't have the means to produce in-house. We don't have the size to produce in-house. We don't have the quantities to produce in-house. So movements are purchased elsewhere. But, for example, the Chrono 4 and the 8 days are our patents. Now both are expired in terms of validity because every patent lasts 20 years. So now they are expired, but they are still our movements. Nobody else made the Chrono 4 in 21, 22 years. And today still is our best collection in terms of turnover. So then we ask our suppliers to make cases and dials outside, as it happens for 95% of the brands. So what is done in-house is totally the design, totally the follow-up of the production, and totally for example, the new Chrono 1887, that is the one Sellita made exclusively for us that we presented in Geneva, is made on our design. New position of screws, new position of wheels, new rotor, and so on.
Talking of being the king of Italy, what other markets are important for you? Where do they love Eberhard more than as well in Italy?
I think that more than talking about markets, I would talk about a specific profile of customer. Because today we don't approach China. China is a huge market, very expensive. We cannot afford to go in China, and we do not want to change our DNA to go towards the taste or the desires of the Chinese customers. For us, the customers have always been those mainly coming from the European markets, the Western European markets, but mainly profiling them, those who want to have something different, that know enough watchmaking to understand that we have a place in the history, that they, with the money they want to spend for a watch, they can make a selection, they can make a choice, and we can re-enter, we can be considered in this choice because we give a very good price quality ratio watches, and that we have our position in the market as in particular as a chronographic company. So it's much more someone who wants to make a choice. So I would say that is normally professional, that is normally a manager who, and this happened, I must say, in particular in the last 4 years, just after the COVID virus, the desire increased of the people to understand more about the history of the brands, to go more in depth and not remain on the surface. So from 2019 to 2023, we doubled our turnover. And I'm not saying this because turnovers are important. It's so important for us, and we can, we are an independent company, we're a family company. We can decide to earn one day and to lose if we need to lose to keep a price positioning. We are not a company quoted at the stock exchange. We don't have to respect the stockholders. We are ready to take the decision when they have to be taken. And we doubled the turnover because I think we capitalized on what we have been doing in the past. We have tried to remain faithful to our origin, to keep the price positioning. In the last 2 years, I think you perfectly know how much often big brands or brands of groups have been increasing the price list because of several reasons. I'm not criticizing the choices, but for sure increasing often by even 25 or 30 or 40% in 2 years. This didn't happen with us. We didn't increase because the energy cost was higher. We said probably it would go down in 6 months, and it is what happened. So at the end, we increased only by 12 or 13% in 2 years. On some markets, we give our dealers or our distributor the possibility to pay in euros, even if with the Swiss franc so strong, we keep often the risk ourselves to pay more, because the Italian subsidiary that is 35%, as I said, is paying in euros and has to pay more, the company. So that's we try to make safer the customers by not increasing too much prices, and this reflected on a price positioning that didn't change much, that is making us even more competitive, and our growth in the next years will not be the one we have been seeing in the last 4. But we for sure will make a selection of the markets where we wanted to go. This selection has been done, and we will grow. We will grow maybe even in double digit numbers, but very controlled by us, by the family. We don't want to leave this to the market. We want to control by trying to give watches available to the customers, and not by creating waiting lists that are good. Nobody denies. It's good to know that your watch is on a waiting list. But and I understand we can do it, but we want to have our watches available in the shortest possible time. So to give satisfaction to customers that can still purchase something that is affordable, but want to see it on the wrist.
So between 2019 and 2023, you experienced some incredible success. But what's it been like since then, in the 6 months, 12 months maybe, that we've just gone through? Have you noticed already a strong stabilization of the market and sales reducing?
Yes, absolutely. The market, as you said, is stabilizing. We can see this from different aspects, from the new watches, from the vintage watches, from the second hand. Everything has gone in this direction for sure. Our growth, we had growth until February. Then March was slightly negative. April again slightly negative. Then May and June will be positive also because we have good and big back orders. We are starting to deliver. But as you know, one of the first things that happens on the market when there is a crisis or a stabilization, let's call it stabilization, is, and it's not a crisis in effect, because we have seen how many watches have been sold in the last 4 years. So if we check the numbers for everybody are much better than 2019. So let's talk about stabilization. But for sure, what we see is that there is the growth is reduced, but the first reaction that we see on the market is that the suppliers suffer of this, because the brands immediately stop the orders, and this often is not made by the independent brands, but is made much more by the groups. So the deliveries of spare parts, of dials, of cases are slower because of this. And this is what we are living. So we are suffering, for example, of the lack of a product because the suppliers are late. And the first reaction we see on the markets is unemployment or chômage, as is said as is called in French, mainly among the suppliers. So this is the first reaction. And the first reaction when things restart is that the suppliers restart. But this is a moment where suppliers are a bit stuck. So for sure, we are living a moment that is a bit more difficult, but still the first 6 months of 2024 are 20% higher than the first 6 months of 2019. So we can absolutely not complain.
No, absolutely not. That's fantastic results given the experiences of most other brands, I would say, especially in your price bracket. When it comes to suppliers, do you have just a single supplier for cases, for dials, for hands, etc., or do you now, especially because of the experiences you've had of supply chains becoming quite stuck in their process, do you have multiple suppliers for each component so you can lean on different suppliers when there is a problem with getting the parts you need delivered?
Absolutely. We have several. It's something very logical to have several because it's too risky to have only one per category, let's say. But I think we already lived this in 2008 when the Lehman Brothers, sorry for Morgan Stanley, only Lehman Brothers. The problem with Lehman Brothers emerged, and we saw that the crisis we had for the next year, suppliers disappeared. Suppliers were not able anymore to deliver because of the same that is happening today. So we understood that we cannot rely only on one of them. And this is what we are doing now. So we have 3-4 suppliers for the dials, 2-3 suppliers for the cases. And knowing that you are not the only one also allows us to know that each of them knows that cannot just behave not correctly because they would be substituted. So it's a guarantee in both directions.
That's a very good point. Yeah, it puts a bit of, let's say, healthy pressure on them to behave themselves and at least do their very best to deliver what they've promised they can deliver. Of course, in the old days, having multiple suppliers for different components was quite common, and any Rolex collector will know this intimately because there are so many different variations of dials of classic models that they seek out in every corner of the globe. I wonder now, in a modern world with much more consistent manufacturing and maybe easier to communicate technical drawings and a lot more shared know-how, is it always possible to get exactly the same results from every single supplier, or do you have some variation between components from different suppliers that you are either willing to pass through QC or believe doesn't affect the final product in any way?
I would say that for sure it's possible to have the same quality because technology allows to do this, but still there is a big part of technicality and where technology is not important, but human know-how is very important, and this leaves some differences in the different results. What we try to do is that each product is made by one supplier. So unless we have a major problem that emerges, it comes out during the production process, otherwise one product is done only by one supplier. But for sure, in terms of comparison among the suppliers, the risk doesn't exist almost anymore.
Okay, so that's very interesting. That I did not realize, that you would have specific references supplied by your suppliers rather than having 5 case suppliers that produce all cases.
Yeah, I mean, the Chrono 4, we make the Chrono 4 only with one supplier for the case, one supplier for the dial, and not 2 or 3 that would risk to change. Slightly, maybe the color can change, the result. You give a Pantone, but even if you give a Pantone, then that Pantone often, when you see the samples, doesn't come out in the same way if you have even 3 samples. So it's good to have one supplier for each product, but several suppliers for the whole collection.
Very wise indeed. Talking about the changing market that you're going through, it's not just about products and supply and sales and whatnot. Also, communication plays a big part in that. Now, you've been in your role with Eberhard for 14 years now, so you've already overseen many, many changes and shifts in the way that consumers behave. How have you adjusted to this very modern, very digital form of communication, and what's your strategy for the future?
Yeah, 14 years as a CEO, but 32 in the company. So let's say that I lived several, I would say, ages in terms of how things changed, and in particular regarding the communication. I'm not a fan of social networks because I'm only on LinkedIn. I don't post anywhere else. So from one side, I'm not a customer that can be taken as an example for what it is today. Others of my age and younger have a different passion for this, and we have to do with this. So we have been, I think, able to change the communication, not only our communication, but the whole watch industry was able to do this. I think you remember perfectly, and you have a long experience to confirm what I say, that 10 or 15 years ago, customers and in general were complaining on how the industry was a bit relying always on the same values that obviously are important, but cannot only be the same refrain. So I think these topics are still important, heritage, and we are the first to underline this, but it's the way you communicate this that had to change. We have been noticing how among the most important brands added colors to the collections of the watches when 10, 15 years ago, everything was white or black. Straps, how this changed in the last 10, 15 years. And before it was really only crocodile. And if you didn't have a Camille Fournet on your chronograph, you could not sell it. And today it's not important if a strap costs 10 euros or 300. Often people like to choose the one that costs 20 euros and it's a NATO strap. So I think has been very important. Has been very important to be in touch with the customers as often as possible. We try to do it in a very educated and elegant way because we obviously we have to respect privacy. We never talk to someone that didn't allow. We do this often through our dealers because we still work only with multi-branded dealers. We don't have our boutiques. We don't have online sales, so we decided not to sell online directly to customers. But we need to give great service to our customers. So whoever complains, whoever wants to have an information, or whoever wants to have details on something is thinking to buy, we have to reply immediately. We have to communicate with them through our site, only to communicate and to display, not to sell again, but to communicate in the best possible way. And we have to modernize our communication. This is what we've been doing because you cannot be invasive, you cannot be too noisy, you cannot, but you have to, people have to notice you. So you have to communicate in a different way that is not the advertising page, and this means that you have to communicate quite often, not only with a page, monthly page on a magazine. But if you don't want to be too invasive and to risk to be annoying, then you have to do it in the right way. So everything has to be weighted in a correct way. I don't know if I replied because there is not a recipe. It's something you do day by day when you think to communicate something, and you understand that in 15 years, your average customers lost 10 years, in the sense that we have now an average customer between 35 and 60, when before was between 45 and 70, 75. So this is a process. What I can say in terms of numbers is that if probably 15 years ago, 100% of our budget was going to normal advertising and magazines and newspapers, today is almost 50-50. I would say there is 60 traditional advertising and 40% on communication in social networks, co-op with the customers and so on.
I mean, that's still quite a high percentage, but if you're bringing down the average age of your customer, then I think you're probably going about it in the right way. Talking of things that are interesting to younger customers, sustainability, is this something that pops up in your board meetings? Do you talk about how the company can be more sustainable and what it might have to do in the future to still be relevant?
Sustainability is probably the topic in these years, maybe even too much, because often we risk, as it happened with the cars, and we see now that it's impossible to go toward the electric to be sustainable. Sustainable doesn't mean to go toward electric. If you don't use a renewable, you have to go toward the electric if you can use the renewable and not using fossils energy. So, we have to be sustainable. I think Switzerland has the advantage that it is in a sustainable country, because there is much respect, very much respect for everything, for the environment, for nature, for people. Social attention to workers in the companies is very high. I don't think it exists a country where there is so much attention to workers. Then there are some aspects that don't depend. I think that all the materials that we use are absolutely sustainable. So we know how much the Swiss Federation do for regarding the diamond and precious stones. Steel is absolutely sustainable. Origin are always proved. Gold again. So the emission of the Swiss industry, I think it's the lowest possible. We belong to a city that is La Chaux-de-Fonds, that is a UNESCO patrimony. Our building is a UNESCO patrimony, so probably putting renewables on our roof, it's not exactly what is possible, and it's Again, this is a paradox. But unless we want to see fantastic monuments of the past with the solar panel, then this at the moment is not possible. But for the rest, all that is possible is in the process, has been done or is in the process. We are going toward the elimination of crocodiles. Using crocodile is allowed. If you check what the high end wants, normally the high end, more you go toward the high ends, more it's possible that they want a croco strap or they want a croco bag from one of the most important brands. So again, this is a paradox, but we are going anyway toward the elimination of croco straps, even if crocodiles live in areas where everything has to be in a protocol, and they will live in the best possible way. They are fed in the best possible way, but still, we are going in that direction. So even regarding boxes, we are going toward the elimination of wood. This is a more difficult process, and we know that trees can be replanted, so there is not this risk, and it's also good for nature to have wood reimplanted and trees reimplanted, but we want to go in this direction. So I think sustainability is an important topic. Barry will follow it in Switzerland, but is a key. I think that how we follow this is a key for the new generation. What I noticed in the last, again, I repeat myself, in the last 10, 15 years, it is that beside the fact that watch industry is employing more people than 15 years ago, but there are many more youngs, in particular among managers, and in particular among, obviously, employees, but even among watchmakers. And I remember then 20 years ago, nobody wanted to be a watchmaker anymore. Now, all the schools are receiving requests from young people. And I think sustainability is one of the keys for them to work in this industry, because this is the direction, this is their approach, this is their feeling, and this is the direction the industry is going.
We've talked about what inspires maybe your customers to become Eberhard followers for life, what inspires the next generation, but what inspires you? What is it that specifically gets you out of bed every morning and keeps you excited about doing what you do?
First of all, when I started working, my inspiration was my father. So my father was a watch collector. He was a very creative man. And this inspired me in following this career. Thanks to him, Bedford passed away almost 30 years ago, but in time to tell me what to inspire me in what I could have done in the future. I think that where we go comes from where we come from. So for sure, there is nothing even if all the steps are much quicker now, there is nothing we must lose of the changement we've been seeing in the last years. All what I said regarding the product is the key for us to continue to see creativity and to develop. So what drives my daily activity is the passion, in particular for the production, for the product. Having the possibility to work not only for a subsidiary as it is the Italian, but in particular for the Swiss headquarters, for the Swiss company, keeps me in contact with production that is managed and is followed in particular by Barbara Monti, but that we share together. And this is really what I see as the entrepreneurial activity. So investing in the new product is not really invested. It's not invested. It's absolutely part of our activity. I don't see spending 1 million in one project as spending. it's really granting our future. So this is what drives me, but us in general, and Barbamotti in particular, because 95% of a company belongs to her family, to follow this and to go in this direction.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a moment. So founded in 1887 in Switzerland, when did it become Italian in this sense? When was it acquired by that family?
Palmiro Monti, that was Barbara's Monti father, acquired the company in 1969. And at that point, he moved the company from La Chaux-de-Fonds because the family, the Eberhard family, sold the company separately from the building. The building was the building we're back today. And so Mr. Monti decided to move to Bienne. But then in 2019, we decided to go back to La Chaux-de-Fonds. Mr. Monti passed away in 2004. We decided to go back to La Chaux-de-Fonds in the same building where we were founded. Not exactly founded, because of the first 15 years, the company was in another place. But since the beginning of 1900, we were there, and that became the headquarters. And in 2019, we decided to go back to restore the eagle on the roof, that is one of the symbols of the brand, together with our shield, and to open the museum within the headquarters. So this was the step that we decided to take 5 years ago.
So a wonderful story, starting in Switzerland, being owned by an Italian family, now coming back, still owned by an Italian family. It's a really colourful backstory, absolutely. You mentioned that your father was a collector and that inspired you to get into watchmaking, but are you a collector yourself?
I am a monobrand collector.
What a politically correct answer that was.
No, I mean, my father left me some watches for some years, but already many years ago, I was purchasing something. But then I am now a monobrand collector. I still keep something that only the watches that belong to him. So, but for the rest, I have only Eberhard, and I use only Eberhard. So when I use something else, it's a technical watch that I use for running or for a healthy reason, just to control frequency or something like that. But always together with a mechanic watch. So I never forget to wear a mechanic watch. This is the first thing. No, the second, an Eberhard watch, mechanic, because we have been doing also some quartz in the 70s when the Japanese took the market and many brands disappeared. We remained on the market. So the other astonishing information is that the brand has been on the market for 137 years, even in the most tough years of the history. And for example, for the production, for the Swiss production, the decade between 1970 and 1982, 83, when almost all the mechanic watches disappeared.
What do you think of quartz, personally? Do you think there's a place for it?
I mean, not for a brand like us, that we produce 16,000 pieces per year. It doesn't make sense to produce quartz, unless if we talk about like some classical Croco gold watches for retirements of the companies prize, give as a prize at the end of the career. And this you always have to keep for this reason. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense for us. But why not? I mean, there is room for everything. And I think the Swiss industry lost a bit the battle for the smart watches, because I think with the know-how of the Swiss watchmaking, we shouldn't have left this to other. Even if I understand that some brands, IT brands like Apple, like Samsung, and so on, they make a turnover that is only with the smartwatches that is comparable to the Swiss industry. But I think we lost this battle when we decided not to fight it. And we should have done this, because I think that a watch is a watch from €1 to a few millions. It's something you wear on the wrist and you can read the hour. So that's my position.
Of all the Eberhard watches that you've collected over the years, and I'm sure you've got quite a nice collection now, which is your favorite?
The reply that normally someone would give, and everybody gives, and in this case is every watch I've been see the birth of is one of belongs to the child, to the children that we have. But the Chrono 4 is probably, it's something unique, it's something different. I don't like to use the term iconic because it's abused and everybody uses it. And I don't want to say that it's an icon, but for sure it's something that has not been remade by anybody. Has only been made by counterfeiters. And at the end, since the beginning of the 900, the movements, mechanical or automatics, are more or less the same. They work in the same way. And the counters on a chronograph are more or less the same. 3, 6, 9 o'clock, maybe 12. This is the first chronograph with 4 counters in a row and remains the first chronograph with 4 counters and only chronograph with 4 counters in a row. So for sure it was a bet. I remember in 2001, we were in Basel and Mr. Monti was there, and there were the owners of other brands coming to the booth and saying, congratulations for what you did. And it was really nice to see other players of this market coming and congratulate. And I still feel this as something that has been recognized as something unique and different. So we were able in the last years to make a new version, the one with the ceramic bezels. And this is my answer, Rob.
How amazing is this that while we're talking to Mario, we hear church bells sounding in the background? I hope the filters of the editing won't take this out. This is a perfect segue for me to ask you, Mario, are you planning the Chrono 4 2.0? Are you going to upgrade it so you can get a new patent on it?
Yeah, I think I don't disclose anything if I say that for us, the Chrono 4, as I said before, is our collection, the most important collection, and we will continue to work on this. So today is premature to anticipate what we will do, but for sure, the Chrono 4 remains our most important and recognizable identity. Yeah.
Did you consider doing a collab with another brand? So you'll put your Chrono 4 caliber in their case, for example?
This is something that is discussed. And I must tell you, we didn't arrive yet to the finalization of our headache regarding this. Because we see what happens. We see what has been done last year and the year before by a couple of brands of Source Group. We see what others are doing by adding historical designers to their collection, to their products. But I think it's very difficult to find the right way to do it, because if you ask someone who is in a higher position in terms of price positioning than you, then it's difficult that you will accept. A reason to ask to someone in a lower position, difficult to see. Using a designer, yeah, why not? We already did it in the past. Or we are obviously doing things with brands like Alfa Romeo, for example. But using someone who has been doing something for somebody else, then no. No, because then the risk is that your brand is recognizable not for your brand, but because of the designer. So we didn't arrive to the reply, to the final decision. We are thinking, even if what I said might make think that the position is negative. No, because we discussed this all together. So we'll see. But obviously, it's something we are considering.
So to our dear listeners of the Real Time Show, if you have any cool ideas for Mario on Team Eberhard or in any particular collab you want to see, send us a message or find Mario. You heard it on the show. He only does LinkedIn. So Google him there, connect with him, or send it to us and we'll forward to the team at Eberhard. Another watch that I love, well, actually two I want to talk about, if I may, the 1887.
Yeah.
The chrono, I mean, and the Scientigraph. I want to talk about that. Explain us a bit about the history of both models. And while you're talking, because you're very good, Rob always teaches me, don't ask too many questions, but you are a hardcore pro, so you can handle it. Tell us why the Centigraph 3-hander is still 41 millimeters, and do you see a trend to smaller case sizes?
1887, the project started in 2019. When we went back to Le Chaux de Fonds and we opened the museum, we wanted to mark that moment by starting something new, made, let's say, kilometer zero. So with the Celita, we started the collaboration. Celita is 5 kilometers or less from us. And we started to work on the 1887 hand winding 3 hands. We liked what came out, was very elegant. And we said that this would have been the base for a next step. And this time in Basel, 27 years in Basel, still in the back of my mind. This year in Geneva, we presented the 1887 chronograph in 2 versions. So AMT, that is the high end of Celita, has a chronograph in the collection that is a flyback. We asked them to modify the flyback for us. So they made, on our design, a flyback automatic. That is our caliber equipping the automatic version of the 1887, the EB 380. And on that development, that is already the first development, we then made the hand winding. The EB 280, again, redesigned, remodified. All the wheels and the screws and all the aspects have been, again, modified. And this is a limited edition, 250 pieces. So this wants to be the base of our future collection, future manufacture. By being very, very clear, we cannot yet produce in house. So we are relying on someone like Celita who has great quality, very good price position, and can work with us on exclusive projects to do this. And we never hide it. When we were buying from ETA, we always declare we're buying from ETA. We always declared that the Chrono Forward was based on an ETA mold. We were always very open on the origin of our. So this regarding the 1887. Regarding then the Scientigraph, correct?
Correct.
So the Scientigraph is an anti-magnetic watch that was made in 1961. Double case, tender iron, soft iron. The inner case is in soft iron. This respecting the norm ISO 9000, and I don't remember, I'm sorry, 9001 or 9015, I don't remember, but it's not important. Anyway, respecting the norms, allow to avoid the anti-magnetic waves, the magnetic waves. The image of a watch is the image of a watch of the 60s. So we even did bracelet with the same design because we wanted to make something very similar to the past, almost unfindable on the market because the second-hand watch, the vintage watch, Scientigraph, it's almost impossible to find on the market. And this was also the reason why we wanted to keep it very similar to the original. because it's very difficult to find the original. And we made 41. We know that the sizes are decreasing, but I think Barbara Monti is very good in producing with a very good proportion of the cases. And when you wear the 41, it doesn't seem 41. It seems a bit smaller. It seems a 40 or even a 39 millimeter scale. And I think we will not make another size, because this is giving us very good results, very good. The first reaction is, but it's 41. But try it on the wrist, and when you try it on the wrist, it's very well proportioned. Where we are starting to reduce the size, not to reduce, but to make a smaller size, is on the scaphogram. That is the diving watch. We have been doing the diving watch, the scapograph in 2016, remaking the watch of the 50s. In 2016, won the Grand Prix de l'Horlogerie and came out with only the 43 millimeter scale. Yes, there we will add something smaller, like a 39, 38. We are studying the size because we know what is happening. But we also know that we have been always trying really to give an important eye to the proportion of the case.
Well, what a great place to round up the show, because we finished on, or almost finished on, my favorite Eberhard watch, that's the Scientigraph. If anyone hasn't seen this watch, you should go along to the official website that can be found at eberhard-co-watches.ch. That's eberhard-co-watches.ch. And it's incredible. If you've been looking for an old Explorer or a Omega Railmaster, or even you missed the Milgauss and its anti-magnetic properties, this is a watch you should definitely check out. Mario, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. I feel like we could have gone on another hour, because I know Alon is itching to ask about every other watch in the catalogue, but we'll have to get you back on sometime in the future for round 2. If any of our listeners do have questions for Mario or anything they'd like to run by Alon or I, then you can get in touch with us via our usual channels, either Instagram at therealtime.show, or via email, either Rob, Alon, or David at therealtime.show. We'll be back soon with more top quality watch content. Until then, stay safe and keep on ticking.
Rob and Alon, thank you very much. It was a pleasure.